A crackdown on extremism and the purveyors of terror. The Home Secretary in Birmingham. That's next.
Now the latest ITV News Central with Bob Woolman and Samina Ali Khan.
Welcome to our programme. Heading up our news tonight, the government announces a new series of measures to tackle radicalism and extremism at the Tory party conference in Birmingham.
Let the message go out that we know Islam is a religion of peace and it has nothing to do with the ideology of our enemies.
6 police officers are served with misconduct notices over the way they dealt with a teenage killer.
53 marathons over 53 days. We catch up with the charity runner who's finally finished her milestone mission.
And with the Tories in town, we look at the impact they're having on Birmingham.
Good evening. The Home Secretary, Theresa May, has used her keynote speech in Birmingham to announce a raft of new measures to tackle extremism. She said the lessons learned from the Trojan Horse affair in Birmingham had to lead to a tough crackdown on radicalism.
Well, among the proposals, new powers to ban organisations who spread hate, as well as extremism disruption orders to target individuals who promote what she called a poisonous narrative that can wrongly influence vulnerable people. Our political correspondent, Alison Mackenzie, joins us from the conference now. And Alison, strong words from Mrs May.
Strong words indeed, and she was reaching out to the Tory party faithful here, but very much the focus on the thoughts, the thinking, the radicalisation prior to any potential terror. And she had in mind there, of course, the Trojan Horse affair. We've reported extensively on ITV News Central. Schools now turning themselves around, but she reminded her listeners today what was going on there.
School pupils were told about the dangers of white prostitutes. The call to prayer was broadcast over loudspeakers. Music was banned. Boys and girls were segregated. Trips to Saudi Arabia were arranged for Muslim-only children. And inspectors found a culture of bullying and intimidation.
So her message to the conference, if a Tory majority government gets in next time, banning orders on organisations who preach hate, extremism disruption orders to stop the activities of those who would travel and spread bad views and bad words. And some civil liberties campaigners are against some of the views, and some in her own party saying, is she going too far? So she was keen to bring on board good British Muslims to support her.
Extremists will never succeed in dividing us. Let the message go out that we know Islam is a religion of peace and it has nothing to do with the ideology of our enemies. And let us stand side by side with the British Muslims who are coming together and saying, "Not in my name."
Now, elsewhere, Alison, some good news on the jobs front from David Cameron today.
Well, yes, he and his Chancellor took a visit to New Street Station, as you know, multi-million-pound redevelopment there, and he was keen to big up new plans for a college to train up engineers, apprentices involved in HS2, a project he's very proud of. This is what he had to say to us.
The HS2 College is going to be located partly in Doncaster, but also partly here in Birmingham. It will open in 2017, and it's great to see 100 apprentices on site here. This HS2 College will train up at least 2,000 apprentices for this absolutely vital piece of infrastructure work.
So he likes to bring good news. Will he have any more good news up his sleeve? He's on his feet tomorrow, addressing the whole conference as they wrap up here in Birmingham. What he won't want is any more news of too many more people switching to UKIP.
Alison, thanks very much for that report, and we'll be looking at how staff at the city's hotels have been coping during the conference later in the programme.
6 officers at West Mercia Police have been served with misconduct notices over how they dealt with the killer of teenager Georgia Williams. Jamie Reynolds admitted murdering Georgia from Wellington in Shropshire at his home in May 2013. Now the officers are to be questioned about their dealings with Reynolds over an attack 5 years before Georgia's murder. We can cross now to Daryl Murphy, who's in the newsroom, with more on this. Daryl.
Well, this was a murder that shocked the country when it happened last year. Reynolds convinced Georgia to come to his house for a photo shoot. It was there that he strangled her before taking her body to North Wales, where he dumped it. Now, in December last year, he was sentenced to a whole life term. Now, it's important to say this inquiry into the officers from West Mercia Police is not linked to the force's investigation of Georgia Williams's murder. Instead, it's looking into an incident 5 years earlier, back in 2008. That was when Reynolds was cautioned by police when, aged 17, he lured another girl back to his home in Wellington. Now, in that instance, he also used the pretense of a photo shoot and tried to strangle her during an attack which mirrored Georgia's murder. Now, today it's been confirmed that 6 officers in the force have been sent letters summoning them to interview by detectives from Devon and Cornwall Police. They're conducting a review of the way that the case was handled. Now, the Devon and Cornwall force have made it clear to us that none of the officers have been suspended. Georgia's mother, Lynette Williams, has also issued a statement about this tonight. In it, she says her family is disappointed in the lack of a statement and detail from Devon and Cornwall Police and for not being open and honest with us and the public, as they said they would be from the beginning of the inquiry. Clearly tonight she still has questions she wants answered about the way police dealt with Reynolds in the past. She's already said before that she believes that if police had been more thorough, her daughter could still be alive today.
Daryl, thank you very much. On to other news, and Yardley School in Birmingham will be closed until the 7th of October following a suspected arson attack at a nearby warehouse. More than 70 firefighters were called to A&S Supplies and Tyseley Carpet Warehouse in Reddings Lane in Tyseley shortly before 3 a.m. yesterday.
10% of 3-year-olds in the West Midlands have tooth decay, according to Public Health England. That's 2% better than the national average of children examined in their nursery or playgroup. Leicester is the worst place in the country for tooth decay, though, with more than a third of 3-year-olds showing signs. Dentists are advising parents to avoid giving sugary drinks to their children.
You need to brush twice a day with a fluoride toothpaste. Limit the amount of sugar children are having. Snacks should have no sugar in whatsoever. Be careful with food and snacks that are advertised as healthy because they sometimes do contain sugar, even though they can be part of your 5 a day.
And for hints on how to keep you and your children's teeth healthy, go to our website, itv.com/central.
A mother whose waters broke at just 16 weeks into her pregnancy has beaten the odds of less than 1% to go on and have a healthy baby. Katie Evans was advised that she would go into labour within a week and that her only option was to have a termination. But she decided to let nature take its course. And
2 weeks later, she had a scan which showed her waters had replenished and her baby was OK. Emily Knight picks up the story.
Mum of 2, Katie Evans, enjoying some playtime at home with her daughter, 3-year-old Amber, who is now a big sister to baby Leo, who is 8 months old. Leo was born at 33 weeks in January with no complications, but the beginning of Katie's pregnancy was a different story. At 16 weeks, her waters broke and she was told she had a condition called preterm premature rupture of the membranes. She was advised to have a termination.
Everyone's telling you it's not possible, and you know you want to fight for that little person, and so we decided that we would want to give them the chance, you know, and let nature take its own course.
More than 80% of women with PPROM deliver within 7 days of their waters breaking. The chance of the baby surviving is extremely slim, at less than 1%.
Katie researched PPROM online and spent time reading about other people's experiences. 2 weeks later and she still hadn't gone into labour. She then went for her scan, preparing herself for the worst.
I went into that scan thinking that the baby will still be alive, but the waters will still be leaking, and so they won't have developed. I never ever imagined that we would go in there and I would have a full womb full of amniotic fluids. You know, they had completely replenished. I just quietly sat there and cried. I was so overwhelmingly happy.
Katie went on to have a normal pregnancy with a healthy, bouncing baby boy.
It's wonderful that, you know, he had so little hope and that he made it, and he's you almost forget how awful it was because you know. He's so happy now.
Katie says more research needs to be carried out into PPROM, and that the statistics on survival rates which doctors currently use in the UK need to be updated. She hopes it will lead to women being more informed about what's happening to them. Emily Knight, ITV News.
Teenage cancer campaigner Stephen Sutton is to be honoured with the first posthumous Pride of Britain award next week. The 19-year-old from Burntwood in Staffordshire raised more than £5 million for the Teenage Cancer Trust. He died of bowel cancer in May. The Pride of Britain Awards will be shown on ITV next Tuesday.
The time is coming up to 11 minutes past 6, still ahead on the programme. 53 marathons over 53 days. We catch up with the charity runner who's finally finished her milestone mission.
And what's ahead for the Midlands as we move into October. I'll have your forecast in a few minutes' time.
Now, for the moment, we go back to the Conservative Party conference, and a big moment this afternoon for the new Education Secretary and Midlands MP, Nicky Morgan, as she made her first conference speech as a senior cabinet minister.
Only elected 4 years ago, she's had a rapid rise to power. Our correspondent Gareth Owen has been following her preparations.